His belt came down again and again while my children screamed for him to stop. And that night, when my body finally broke, something powerful was born inside me, the courage to act. "Please, John. Stop. You're hurting me." I screamed, but my voice barely came out. My children were crying in the corner, holding each other tightly as if their tears could stop his hands. His belt came down on me again, and again and again. The pain was like fire crawling through my skin. I tried to move to shield myself, but my body could no longer listen to me. My legs trembled, weak like sticks ready to snap. "Please, Daddy, stop!" Little Emily cried out, running toward him. But he turned with eyes that didn't look human anymore. He pushed her aside so hard she fell and hit her head on the wall. I wanted to run to her, but my back screamed in pain. My body gave up. I fell to the floor, feeling my bones twist in ways they shouldn't. Something snapped. I screamed louder than I ever had in my life. And then silence. He stood there, breathing heavily, looking at me like I wasn't even a person anymore. My children were crying so hard I could barely hear my own sobs. My hand shook as I reached for them, but my legs wouldn't move. That was the night everything in my life changed. That was the night I became disabled. But it was also the night something inside me woke up. Something stronger than fear, stronger than pain. That was the night I decided to act. Before that terrible night, if anyone had told me my husband would one day raise a hand against me, I would have laughed and told them they were crazy. John wasn't always a monster. Once upon a time, he was my hero. We met when I was just 22, working as a cashier in a small grocery store in town. He was handsome, polite, and had that warm smile that made everyone trust him instantly. I remember the first day he walked in tall, with a bag of apples in one hand and a book in the other. He said, "You have the kindest eyes I've ever seen." I blushed so hard I couldn't even count his change properly. He laughed and said, "Keep the change, Miss Kind Eyes." That was the beginning of what I thought was love. We started dating a few weeks later. He would come to the store every day, sometimes with flowers, sometimes just to talk. My mother used to say, "Mary, that man loves you. Hold on to him." And I believed her. He was gentle, patient, and funny. When he finally asked me to marry him, I said yes without thinking twice. Our wedding was small but beautiful. I wore a simple white dress, and he couldn't stop smiling the whole day. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and that felt like enough. When our first child, Emily, was born, John held her in his arms and cried tears of joy. He said, "I'll protect this family with my life." But promises are easy to make when life is good. It started small. At first, John would get angry when I talked to strangers, especially men. He'd say, "You're my wife. You shouldn't be smiling at other people." I thought it was love. I thought jealousy meant he cared. But soon his words turned into shouting. The first time he hit me, I was cooking dinner. The stew had burned a little because Emily was crying in the next room. He came in, sniffed the air, and said, "What's that smell?" I apologized, but he didn't listen. His face twisted in anger, and before I knew it, his hand was across my face. I remember the shock more than the pain. I dropped the spoon and just stared at him, hoping it was a bad dream. He apologized later, crying, saying he didn't know what came over him. He brought flowers, knelt down, and begged for forgiveness. And like a fool, I forgave him. But the apologies became less, and the violence became more. Every small mistake turned into a reason to shout, to hit, to break something. I started walking on eggshells, afraid to breathe too loud. My children began to hide under the bed whenever they heard his voice rise. I told myself he was just stressed, that things would get better, but deep inside, I knew they wouldn't. One day, I went to visit my friend Sarah. She was the only one I could talk to. I told her a little about what was happening, leaving out most of the ugly parts. She looked at me and said, "Mary, you need to leave. For your children's sake." I wanted to. Oh, how I wanted to. But where could I go? John had taken control of everything. The money, the car, even my phone. He made sure I had no one but him. He told me, "You're nothing without me." And I started to believe it. One evening, things got worse. He came home drunk. The smell of alcohol hit me before he even stepped inside. The children were doing their homework in the living room. I tried to keep my voice calm as I greeted him, but he threw his jacket on the floor and shouted, "You cooked the wrong food again." I hadn't. It was his favorite soup, but he didn't care. He wanted to fight. He grabbed the bowl and threw it against the wall. The sound made Emily scream. I rushed to hold her, but before I could, he pulled me by the hair and slapped me so hard I saw stars. I could hear my son Jacob yelling, "Leave mommy alone." That night I saw fear in my children's eyes, fear of their father, and that broke me more than the pain ever could. Still I stayed. I told myself I was staying for the kids, but deep down, I was staying because I was scared. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. My body carried scars, some outside, some deep inside where no one could see. I started limping after one of his beatings, but I hid it from everyone. When the neighbors asked, I said I fell down the stairs. Then came that night. The night when my body could no longer take it. The night my children saw everything. The night I became disabled. When the doctor told me I might never walk properly again, something inside me snapped, but not in a bad way. For the first time in years, I looked at myself in the mirror and didn't see a weak woman. I saw someone who had survived the worst. Someone who still had a chance to fight back, not for herself alone, but for her children. I couldn't endure it anymore, so I decided to act. But what I did next changed everything. The hospital room smelled of medicine and sadness. Machines beeped beside my bed, and every sound reminded me that I was broken. My legs were wrapped in bandages, my arm in a sling, and my face bruised beyond recognition. I could hardly turn my head without feeling a sharp pain shoot through my body. But what hurt more than all of that was not knowing where my children were. I opened my eyes slowly and saw Nurse Grace standing by the door. She was a kind woman with gentle eyes, maybe in her late 40s. When she saw I was awake, she hurried to my side. "Mary, you're awake," she whispered softly. "Thank God." My voice was weak. "My children, where are they?" She looked down before answering. "They're safe, dear. Your neighbor, Mrs. Turner, brought them here last night. They were crying outside your house when the police arrived." Tears rolled down my cheeks. They saw everything. Grace nodded sadly. "Yes, they did. But they're okay now. Social services are taking care of them until you recover." I tried to move, but my legs refused to obey. The pain was unbearable. I bit my lip to stop myself from screaming. That was when I realized I couldn't feel my left leg properly. Panic filled me. "Grace," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Why can't I move my leg?" She sighed, her eyes filling with pity. "Mary, the doctor said the nerves are badly damaged. You might not be able to walk like before. I'm so sorry." Her words echoed in my head like thunder. You might not be able to walk like before. It was like my whole world collapsed again. I turned my face to the wall and cried silently. But as the tears fell, something inside me hardened. I thought about all the years I had kept quiet. All the nights I prayed he would change. All the lies I told to protect him. And now I was lying here, half broken, my children terrified, and my soul crushed. I wiped my tears and whispered to myself, "No more. I will not die this way. He took enough from me. He won't take my children too." That night, I couldn't sleep. The pain in my body was nothing compared to the fire in my heart. I stared at the ceiling, thinking, planning. I didn't know what I would do yet, but I knew I had to act. The next morning, the doctor came in. He was a tall man with glasses and kind eyes. He asked how I felt and I lied. "Better." He nodded slowly, then said, "Mrs. Parker, the police want to talk to you when you're ready. They said your husband is in custody." My heart skipped a beat. "In custody? What happened?" I asked quickly. The doctor sighed. "When the police arrived, your husband was gone. But they caught him early this morning trying to run away. They said he was drunk and shouting your name in the street." I closed my eyes. I could almost hear his voice, full of anger and hate. For years I had feared that voice. But now lying there I realized I didn't fear him anymore. I pitied him. When the police came, a young female officer named Clara took my statement. I told her everything, from the first slap to the last beating. She listened quietly, writing down every word. When I finished, she placed her hand on mine and said, "You're very brave, Mrs. Parker. We'll make sure justice is served." Justice. That word felt strange on my tongue. For so long, I had thought justice was something only other people got. Not women like me. Not broken mothers who stayed too long. A few days later, Mrs. Turner brought my children to visit. Emily ran into the room first, tears in her eyes. "Mommy," she cried, hugging me tightly. Jacob followed, holding my hand gently. "Are you okay, Mommy?" I smiled weakly. "I will be, my love. I promise." They sat beside me, and for the first time in a long while we talked freely. No shouting, no fear, no walking on eggshells. Just peace. But peace doesn't last long when you've lived through hell. A week later, I was discharged from the hospital. Mrs. Turner helped me move into her small apartment for the time being. My children shared a room, and I slept on a narrow bed near the window. Life was hard, but at least we were safe. One afternoon, while I was sitting in the wheelchair by the window, I saw a black car parked across the street. I didn't think much of it, until I saw who stepped out. John. My heart stopped. He looked thinner, wilder, his beard overgrown. He stood there, staring up at the window like a ghost that had found its way back. "Mommy, that's Daddy," Emily whispered, her voice trembling. I quickly rolled my wheelchair back from the window and whispered, "Close the curtains now." My hands were shaking. How did he get out? I grabbed my phone and called Officer Clara immediately. "Clara, he's here. He's outside the house." Her calm voice came through the phone. "Stay inside, Mrs. Parker. Don't open the door. I'm sending a patrol right now." My heart pounded so fast I could barely breathe. I could hear his footsteps outside, pacing back and forth. Then he started shouting, "Mary, I just want to talk. Please come out." Tears rolled down my cheeks, but this time, they weren't tears of fear, they were tears of anger. I whispered to myself, "You won't hurt us again." He kept shouting, louder and louder. The neighbors started peeking from their windows. Then suddenly a loud bang echoed. He had thrown something at the door. The children screamed. I hugged them close, whispering, "It's okay, Mommy's here. The police are coming." But before they could arrive, the door handle began to turn slowly. The door handle turned again, slowly, like the hand of a ghost. My breath caught in my throat. Emily clung to my arm, her tiny fingers trembling, while Jacob hid behind the wheelchair. I could hear John's voice from the other side. "Mary, please open the door. I just want to talk." His voice wasn't the same as before. It sounded broken, desperate, but I knew better. I had heard that tone too many times, the soft begging before the storm. I whispered to the kids, "Go into the bedroom. Lock the door and don't come out, no matter what you hear." Emily shook her head, crying, "Mommy, no. He'll hurt you again." I brushed her hair gently and forced a smile. "Not this time, baby. Mommy's not afraid anymore." They ran into the room, and I could hear the small click of the lock turning. I rolled closer to the front door, my heart racing. The door burst open with a loud crash. He stepped in, breathing heavily, eyes wild and red from either alcohol or madness, maybe both. His clothes were dirty, his hair messy, his hands shaking. "Mary," he said softly, "you took my children from me. You turned them against me." I stared at him, trying to sound calm even as my whole body shook. "You did that yourself, John. You hurt me. You scared them. You destroyed everything we had." He stepped closer, his voice rising. "I was angry, yes, but I didn't mean it. You made me lose control. If you had just listened." "Listened?" I shouted, my voice trembling. "Listen while you beat me? While you broke my bones in front of our children? You call that love?" He froze for a moment. The silence between us was heavy, filled with years of pain, betrayal, and broken promises. Then his expression changed. The fake sadness melted away, and that old monster came back. "You think you can live without me?" he hissed. "You think you can hide my kids from me?" He grabbed the wheelchair handles and shook them hard. "You belong to me, Mary. You always have." My hands found the small kitchen knife I had hidden under the blanket earlier. I held it tight, though my hand was shaking. "Don't come closer, John. Please don't make me do this. He laughed a cold, empty laugh. You? You can't even stand up, Mary. What will you do? He took another step forward, and that was when I saw flashing lights outside. The police car had finally arrived. John Parker. Step away from her, shouted Officer Clara from the doorway. John turned quickly, startled. In that split second, he let go of my wheelchair, and I pushed myself backward as hard as I could. The knife slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. Don't move, Clara shouted again, gun raised. But John didn't stop. He rushed forward, trying to grab the knife. And in that moment, everything became a blur. Clara pulled the trigger. The sound was deafening. John fell to the floor, clutching his shoulder, shouting in pain. Mommy! Emily screamed from the bedroom. I tried to move toward her, but Clara stopped me gently. It's okay, Mary. It's over now. I looked at John lying on the floor, blood spreading across his shirt. He was still breathing, his eyes full of something between anger and regret. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered every bruise, every scream, every night of terror. I remembered my children's cries. I turned my face away as the officers took him out in handcuffs. For the first time in years, the house was quiet. The next few months were a blur of court hearings, therapy sessions, and sleepless nights. John was charged with domestic assault and attempted murder. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. When the judge read the sentence, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. I had once loved that man, truly loved him, but the person he became was not the one I married. My children and I moved to a small apartment in another town, far from the memories that haunted us. I started physical therapy to help me walk again. Each step was painful, but every time I felt like giving up, I remembered that night, and how far we had come. Mommy, Emily said one day, watching me struggle to take a few steps with my crutches. You're so brave. I smiled through my tears. No, sweetheart. We're brave, all of us. Slowly, life began to return to something like normal. I found strength I never knew I had. I started volunteering at a women's shelter, helping others who were going through what I once did. I told them, don't wait for the pain to become unbearable. You don't have to stay. You don't have to be afraid. Each time I spoke, I felt lighter. As if my story wasn't just my pain anymore, but someone else's hope. Months passed, and one evening, while sitting on the balcony with my children, we watched the sun set together. The sky was painted orange and pink, and for once I felt peace. Mommy, Jacob asked softly, do you think Daddy will ever change? I looked at him for a long moment. Maybe, I said finally. But even if he doesn't, we already did. And that's what matters. They smiled and leaned against me. I hugged them close, whispering, we survived, my loves. And we'll never be silent again. But just as I thought the past was behind us, something happened that night that made my heart stop again. My phone buzzed with a message. Unknown number. I opened it. It said, you think you're safe, Mary? I'm coming for my family. The moment I read that message, my blood ran cold. My hands began to shake so badly that I almost dropped the phone. I stared at the screen, hoping it was some cruel mistake, a wrong number, a prank, anything but him. But deep down, I knew that voice, that threat, could only come from one man. John. Mommy, are you okay? Emily asked softly, her big brown eyes full of worry. I quickly forced a smile, and put the phone face down on the table. Yes, baby. Mommy's fine. But inside, my heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would burst out of my chest. He was in prison. He was supposed to be in prison. That night, after putting the children to bed, I called Officer Clara. She picked up almost immediately. Mary, what's wrong? Clara, I whispered, my voice trembling. I just got a message. From him. There was a brief silence on the line. Then she said, John Parker? That's impossible. He's still serving his sentence. No, Clara. I said, almost crying. It's him. I know it's him. He said he's coming for his family. Clara sighed. Okay, listen to me carefully. I'll check with the prison authorities right now. Lock all your doors and windows. Don't let anyone in, no matter what. I did exactly what she said. I locked every window, checked every corner, and even placed a chair against the front door. My children were asleep in the next room, peaceful and innocent, completely unaware of the danger that might be coming our way. That night felt endless. Every sound outside made me jump. The rustle of leaves, the barking of a dog. Even the wind felt like footsteps. Morning came, but the fear didn't go away. My phone rang around 9 a.m. It was Clara again. "Mary," she said. I checked. John didn't escape. But yesterday, another inmate got access to a phone. We think he made that call for him. I sighed in relief but still felt uneasy. "So, it was a message from prison?" "Yes," she said. "And don't worry, we've moved him to a high-security block. He won't be contacting you again." I wanted to believe her. I tried to believe her. But somehow, I knew this wasn't the end. Weeks passed. Life started to calm down again. I focused on my therapy, my kids, and the small community work I was doing. The fear slowly faded into the background, replaced by determination. One sunny afternoon, I was in the garden outside our apartment, watering the small flowers Emily had planted. The kids were playing with a ball nearby, laughing, real laughter, the kind that had been missing from our lives for years. Then I heard it. A voice. Deep. Familiar. Whispering from somewhere close. "Beautiful day, isn't it, Mary?" I froze. My watering can slipped from my hand. I turned slowly, and there he was. John. Standing across the street, dressed in a gray hoodie, sunglasses hiding his eyes, but I knew that face. The smirk. The posture. The way he tilted his head. It was him. My heart nearly stopped. He wasn't supposed to be out. He wasn't supposed to find us. "John," I whispered in disbelief. How did you get out?" He smiled. That same cold smile I had seen too many times before. "Good behavior, Mary. They said I've changed." He took a step closer. "But I didn't change for them. I changed for you." I backed away slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. "Stay away from me, John. Please. The police will." He cut me off. "The police can't protect you forever. You and I, Mary. We were meant to be together. You and the kids, you're all I have." I could hear the children behind me. "Mommy, who's that man?" Jacob asked softly. I turned to them, my voice breaking. "Go inside. Now." They obeyed immediately. My heart raced. I reached into my pocket and pressed the emergency button on the small safety device Clara had given me. It sent my location straight to the police. John saw my hand move and laughed darkly. "You think they'll get here before I do something you'll regret?" "Please, John," I begged, tears streaming down my face. "You've done enough. Let us live in peace." He hesitated for a moment, then his eyes softened slightly. "Peace. I don't want peace, Mary. I want my family." He took another step forward, and then the sound of sirens filled the air. He froze. 2 police cars pulled up, tires screeching. Officers jumped out shouting, "Hands where we can see them." John turned, his face twisted with rage. "You called them again? You'll regret this, Mary." He tried to run, but the officers were faster. They tackled him to the ground, handcuffed him, and dragged him away as he shouted curses and threats. I stood there trembling, my whole body shaking. Clara ran up to me and placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "It's okay now, Mary. It's really over this time." But I couldn't stop crying. My tears fell not from fear anymore, but from relief. My children came out and hugged me tightly. "Mommy, is he gone?" Emily asked. I nodded, holding them close. "Yes, baby. He's gone. And he's never coming back." Months later, I testified one last time in court. John was given a life sentence for violating his parole, escaping custody, and attempting to harm us again. When I looked at him in the courtroom, sitting there in chains, he didn't shout this time. He just looked at me, quiet, defeated, empty. As they led him away, I whispered softly, "May God forgive you." And for the first time, I meant it. Years passed. I learned to walk again, slowly, painfully, but proudly. My children grew up strong and kind, full of light despite the darkness they had seen. I started sharing my story publicly, not to relive the pain, but to help others see that silence only feeds evil. I told women, if someone truly loves you, they'll protect your peace. not destroy it. One evening, standing before a crowd of women at a small conference, I said, "Pain may break your body, but it doesn't have to break your spirit. If I can rise again, so can you."